Thank you very much, Dale, and let me just get this going. So I've been here in Las Vegas. We've been doing a bit of spot the difference between Europe and the States there, and I think the Eiffel Tower here, it's the only time I've seen something here that's smaller than the one in Europe, so there's a bit of work to do there. World Potato Markets, weekly newsletter on production and prices and trade of potatoes and, importantly, potato products as well. And I know we've got lots of readers here, so many thanks for that. So this time last year, I was telling you about the 2018 drought in Europe. It's been another year of extreme weather. It's a bit more of a nuanced year of extreme weather. So here on the left, we have Polish potato harvesting in August. One of the worst droughts they've ever had in Poland, so just kicking up the dust there. And then just go forward 2 or 3 months in the UK, in England, and that's potato harvesting there. Looks more like rice, and that's actually a farmer trying to dig his potatoes out with a digger there. So still probably around about 20,000 acres of potatoes in the ground still in the UK to be lifted. So a difficult year. There were new record highs of temperature set across northwest Europe and topping off around about 115 degrees Fahrenheit in France. But Netherlands, Germany, UK and Belgium all set new temperature records as well. So this is something I think, we're all, the volatile weather, what the reasons are behind it, but it's something that is confronting us all. So the result of that was that Europe had its second smallest potato crop on record, and crucially, there was a limited recovery in the 5 key countries who account for most of the exports and production of, especially of processed products. That's Belgium, France, Germany, Netherlands, and the UK. Those 5 countries there. So they're producing more and more of the potatoes as a percentage. Around about 60% of the European or the EU potatoes are produced in those 5 countries. That's so far at the moment hasn't really translated into much higher prices yet. This is just sort of free buy prices, free market prices up until the end of the year, going into January. They started to tick up a bit last week as things got back to normal after the holidays. And we are expecting a sort of slowly gradual increase. These are in euros per tonne, but perhaps sort of getting to around about 200 euros a tonne, around about 220 US dollars a tonne by the end of the season. The effect really of the 2018 drought can be seen a little bit in these figures here. These are exports of the EU to countries outside the EU, so it's not in trade between, say, France and Germany or whatever. It excludes that, but this is this is that, so the US fry export, EU fry exports outside the EU were 5% less in volume, but actually were up by 4% to 1.4 or nearly 1.5 billion. Dollars. We're calculating that this year we're going to see around about $17 billion worth of potato trade around the world. That's certainly a record, and so just sort of demonstrates the strength of the global market and how important it is. And if you remember, around about I think it's about 85% of that trade is really just by 4 countries: Belgium. Belgium, Netherlands, US and Canada taking the lion's share of that trade. So EU products have increased in price a bit over the last year. You see that black figure there, the black line there is Belgium, so still below others. And Dutch prices are similar to Canadian. But even though the European prices have increased, they're still a little way below the US prices. You have to remember that slightly different product involved here, different sizes and to slightly different markets. So it's not completely like for like, but it is a guide there. And Belgium being able to build up its market, being a sort of a supplier of perhaps lower cost product, and now exporting around about 2.5 million tons of fries every year, which is compared to around about 1 million tons for the US. So a big player, and they've invested over the last few years in their production. And this is probably a slide you don't really want to see. You're probably not eating that many French fries, but you're probably eating some Dutch and Belgian French fries. Or the Belgians like to call them Belgian fries, and they originated in Belgium, so the French nicked them off Belgium. So that's what they say. So around about 100,000 tons of exports to EU exports into the US of fries, because you've got such a strong market here, and EU being so sort of competitive, that's increased. And you can see that's increased very quickly over the last 2 or 3 years. And probably some pressure on that again this next year, and we're not really expecting to see a great increase in European fry exports just because of the availability. So a pretty strong and tight market across the world. So some of the factors affecting 2020 plantings, what might happen this year. There are small areas of potatoes still in the ground in England, Belgium, Netherlands and France. Some of them are coming out. They are in not brilliant condition, but they are usable just about. Winter cereal planting, particularly in the UK, has been very badly hit, so that might mean a little bit more land for sort of spring alternatives, probably not potatoes. And 2 years of tight supplies. Buyers will be looking for more supplies, so that might create an opportunity for people to grow. There are some virus issues with potato seed that might affect it, and crucially, the sprout suppressant CIPC and the desiccant dicot will not be able to be used in the EU in 2020. So we're thinking probably a more or less probably not a real increase, and if there is, it will be very small. So just more on the CIPC ban. No authorizations from last week, and no use after October 2020. So effectively, that means CIPC is banned. There are some restrictions on imports as well. There are alternatives, but those are not approved in all European Union countries, and including the 1-4 site. That's not approved for use in the UK, but approved elsewhere and proving effective. And so the ban might affect the varieties that are grown, and a possibility of the late season availability will be hit by that as people have tried to get rid of their potatoes as soon as they can. So an important issue, and one that might be an opportunity there. Just looking at some of the potato consumption over the last year, we've seen prices in quite a few of the prices go up in the shops as well. So the France fresh market, Germany fresh market down, Polish fresh market, that's actually in per head. That's gone down quite considerably because of the problems they've had for 2 years, and also as it has been such a big staple that now Polish, particularly young Polish people, are starting to move away from potatoes. It might be seen as something their grandparents ate, and they want to eat something else. So that's a challenge for their industry to reinvigorate the spud. UK not so bad. UK fresh has actually held steady, and UK frozen has increased a little as well. So there are some opportunities there. I think with the weather, one of the big issues for European growers is the stalling in yield increases over the last few years. That has the US and Canadian yields are still going up on a longer term basis, but you had 2 or 3 very difficult years. So I think this is a great challenge for all potato growers. How are you going to grow potatoes in in years where it's more volatile weather? You don't know if it's going to be drought, you don't know if it's going to be frost, you don't know if it's going to be flooding, and you can't legislate against all of those or plan against all of those, but it's about resilience, and those most resilient growers are going to be the ones who survive and thrive. Just more sort of generally here, potatoes do get a bad rap often, but this was an Oxford University report, and so anything on the left-hand side, this is the environmental impact. So if you go up higher, they say that it's more of an environmental impact. Go this way, and there's more of a negative nutritional impact, but potatoes are in that sort of sweet spot here. I reckon this is a little bit unfair on red meat, particularly in terms of nutritional. There is a lot more evidence that actually, despite the rise of veganism or whatever, there is that need for that red meat as well. And particularly if you put them alongside potatoes, you're doing yourself a favour as well. There has been negative news about potatoes in the last few years, but I think that's starting to change around. And this is the Guardian, which is it's not Donald Trump's favourite newspaper, I can say that for sure. It's a more of sort of a left-wing newspaper, and they're sort of championing potatoes as being the thing that might even solve the world food crisis. So that's you can't ask for much more than that. And that very much ties in with the Imagine a World Without Potatoes, the International Potato Centre's campaign to get people to think more about potatoes and value potatoes more. Just as Dale said, I'm vice chairman of something called LEAF, Linking Environment and Farming, which encourages integrated farm management and so good farming practice, good economic farming practice hand in hand with good environmental practice as well, and also telling people about that. So we had about 300,000 school children onto schools on an open farm Sunday in June last year, and lots of work going on in schools as well to get people to understand it and value it and get food and farming as part of the curriculum in schools. The word that you've all been waiting for, the B word. I've been coming here for 2 or 3 years and I say, oh, Brexit's going to happen next year. Brexit hasn't happened, but it is more or less certain that it will happen in just about, 16 days time, at the end of January. Boris Johnson's got his majority. It's gone through it's going through the Houses of Parliament now, and so it will happen. There won't be much change. In the first instance, there's going to be an 11-month transition, and the aim is to get agree a free trade deal with the EU and the UK in that 11 months. I think a lot of people think that is very, very ambitious. Well, it is very ambitious, it will be interesting to see if we get it or not. So the UK wants a sort of Canada-style agreement with the EU, where there are very few tariffs, particularly on agricultural products. There are some tariffs on agricultural products, such as beef and things like that. But that would also allow the UK to do its own trade deals elsewhere, and the US is on top of that list. Although the UK last week ruled out that they would allow the importation of hormone-treated beef, and what has become a bit of a sort of totem, the chlorine-washed chicken. UK said that's off the table, so that might create some friction within that. UK wants to have EU wants to have UK regulations and trade to be as closely aligned to its own rules as possible. And as I say, that's a very, very short timeline, and there is still the possibility of a no-deal Brexit by the beginning of next year. So it ain't over yet. So my Brexit newsletter has got some life in it yet. Not as much as life as world potato markets, but still some light there. And finally, please come and see So European production in real life in the World Potato Congress in Ireland, in Dublin next year. Just a nice bit of time for you to start planning that trip at a good time of the year, just as the summer starts. A beautiful time to see to Ireland and also to discuss it. And you might find it's easier for you to get it in than it is for me as a Brit to get into to Ireland. But I'm going to be following Prince Harry and coming over here, I think. Forget Prince Edward Island. It's going to be Prince Harry Island. So thanks very much for your time and attention, and a very happy and productive 2020. And I look forward to seeing a lot of you over the next couple of days. Thank you very much.